Jay, thanks for joining me, man. Why don't we jump in by just having you introduce yourself, your name, company, where you guys are located, and what you guys specialize in.
Sure. My name is Jay Mahaffey. I'm the owner operator of Mosaica Hard Surface. We are located in St. Paul, Minnesota. We service the Twin Cities area, and our focus is primarily on multifamily, commercial, and some residential.
Nice. And if you could just give our audience, just take them back, like, how did you get into the stone business?
Yeah, so funny story. I used to be a real estate broker up until the recession hit,
Oh, okay.
and I worked with a lot of builders in the real estate market. And I figured out that they weren't going to go away just because of a recession. They were going to reinvent themselves. And so at that point in time, back right around 2010, I had a gentleman that I networked with, and he had a stone background and kind of pulled me in under his wing. And we
Okay.
quickly learned that with his skill and my network, that we could build something.
No way. I did not know that. That's crazy. Were there any other things at that time you were also exploring? And then that just, kind of started to get traction. So you went all in?
Yeah, so I think it just rapidly snowballed
Okay.
because of the network that I had.
Okay.
We quickly went from onesie twosie jobs to getting an offer to work in a very large building, and then
Oh,
it just
wow.
exploded from there.
No way. Holy smokes. Okay. That's cool. What were some of the things from the real estate industry that did transfer? I mean, because the stone industry is so unique,
Yeah, it
into
is. I think at the end of the day, though, if you look at it, we're all serving the client,
Mm,
and there was a lot of R&D that I did in the real estate industry where you have to separate yourself. There's a ton of granite shops, just like there's a ton of realtors in the world.
mm,
So, taking a look at how we were going to conduct business, like how we wanted to be perceived as a company, how we brand,
mm.
that's really kind of what we parlayed off of.
Okay, cool. Um, what have you found to be the most challenging part of running this business?
The most challenging part would probably be first you feel like you have to be the center of the entire company. That's not always necessarily the truth, and we learned a lot of that through your program, kind of just uh, as supporting evidence that you feel like you have to wear every single hat at all
Mm,
times, and that's not necessarily the truth.
right. Okay, yeah, we could definitely dig into that more. Um, and what have you found to be the most rewarding part in this industry or your business specifically?
I mean, for me personally, I think it's knowing that you're providing a lifestyle for the people that give so much to work for you. And that's
Ah,
been by far the most rewarding aspect of being the business owner.
nice. I love that. Okay, cool. Well, I wanted to shift gears. Part of the reason that we're on today is to share your experience of the 90-day growth engine program, which you've graduated from, but we can also talk about what came after. Um, so if you could take me back to before you joined, what were you experiencing in the business before you joined the program? Whether that's, the amount of hours you were working or some of the things that you felt weren't moving fast enough. Like what was really going on at that time?
Yeah, so I think to sum it up in one word would be complacency. Uh,
Mm,
we have, we've been at it quite a while. We just entered into year 16, and so I think where I was at was a crossroads that yes, there's a down market, at least in our region, like many other regions across the country. But we had a lot of unspoken um, policies and procedures that
mm,
kind of loosey goosey people would follow. But
mm.
it felt like we were missing real structure and real drive in what we did, that everybody had a clear and concise uh, role, for the lack of a better term, and what the expectation of them was for each of those roles.
Okay, nice. And how was that impacting things in the business? The
Well,
loosey goosey part. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's easy for people to just kind of point the finger or, pass the buck. And, when things like if something goes wrong, either in fabrication or out in the field, rather than pointing fingers and, everybody just kind of shrugging their shoulders as to, what happened, I think really understanding the procedure and the workflow, and it helps us pinpoint where something might have gone awry, and we can go back and drill down in that area and work on fixing. The last thing you want to do is make the same mistake twice.
Mm. Yeah, totally. Um, it can be a lot of work to put in structure, and I know we're still in that process, but there's, the biggest areas of focus that we have right now in working with you. Um, and we'll tackle those things first and then probably and then move to, really dialing in the structure and taking it to the next level. But prior to joining the program, what were some of the things that you were trying to do? Um, and what did you find worked, and what were you finding some of the gaps to be? Like, where were things falling short for you?
Sure. I think first and foremost, it was trying to figure myself out
Mm,
in the sense that I felt like I was pouring literally everything that I had into the company and just kind of wearing myself down, uh,
mm,
and feeling like again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but feeling like I had to be a huge part of every single thing that happened in the workflow. And you just stretch yourself too thin. And I knew that there has to be a reward for everything that you put in there. And one thing I wasn't getting was like a work life balance.
gotcha, gotcha. Um, and then fast forward just a little bit to, what made you decide to join the program? What was it that was there a specific moment or something that really stood out for you to say, "Hey, yeah, this feels like it could be right for me"?
Yeah, I think, it started with seeing the marketing, and the marketing struck a chord that I think a lot of us business owners in this industry, whether it's flooring, tile, countertops, whatever. Um, I think we all have a lot of the same feelings, and we all kind of hit those crossroads together.
Mm,
I did have a friend reach out that was familiar with the program and had strongly recommended. He said, "Hey, I know some of the changes that your company's gone through." Um, he knew some ins and outs through the years of us doing business, and he kind of got put a bug in my ear and said, this might be you'd be a great candidate for this.
oh,
You
nice. Nice. Yeah, I hadn't realized that you had seen any of our marketing before that, because I think, maybe we were connected on Facebook prior to. Um, yeah. Okay, so that's good to know. And then what were you when you made that decision, what were you hoping to achieve, and what were you hoping to achieve, and what would it have meant for you? And I know we're still in process. Um, what would it have meant for you to get there?
Well, I think what I was hoping to achieve was a way to figure out balance, a way to empower my staff so that I didn't feel like I was at the end of a giant funnel when everybody was looking for an answer or a direction. Uh,
Right.
I wanted to be able to kind of spread that out amongst the people that had the capability of making those decisions. And then I think long term, what I was hoping to get out of it was kind of a renewed energy to say, it's you really can work smarter and not harder,
Mm,
and have the tangibles to prove that in the end.
nice. Okay, awesome. Um, all right, let's unpack some of that to give the people watching this or listening to this, some specifics. So, what were, maybe two or three things from either the program, or, from our weekly coaching calls or exclusive workshops that we do, what are 2 to 3 things that have really stood out for you in terms of what was the system or strategy or tool, that you implemented? And then, if you can name those, then I'd love to go through each one of them and unpack them for people so they can gain some value here too, just by listening or watching us talk about them.
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost would be the decision matrix
Mm,
that was introduced through the program right away at the very beginning of the program. And it was one of those things where it was an aha moment of sometimes it, there's an old saying, it's KISS, keep it simple, stupid, you
right.
know? And so for me, the light bulb went off that here you are. And right away, I want to say it was in the very first week this was introduced. And it was a way for me to tangibly share with my team that you are capable of making decisions. And if you feel that you're not, you can take a look at what you put in front of us, the decision matrix, and it's going to basically walk them through the procedure. And so all of a sudden, you don't get as many knocks on your office door. You don't get as many texts from the shop floor or from the field because
Right.
they're making those decisions on the fly. One, because I've empowered them to do so, but two, it builds confidence with them that they have the intellect and they have the experience to make a lot of those decisions.
Yeah, awesome. And how long would you say it took for that to stick for them, or for them to, buy into it, get the hang of it, because it is stupid simple, as you said, and then, for it to really stick as being like the new way of operating.
Sure, so for us, it was a lot of it was unspoken. Like I think the foundation was fluttering out there, meaning that they knew that they could make decisions, but it's easier to not make a decision. And
Yeah.
so once you put something in front of them and you say, listen, I'm comfortable with this. This is how we need to operate. This is the structure moving forward. My team, thankfully to me, was very quick at grasping this. And
Mm.
they've really taken it and run with it to almost to the point to where sometimes you're like, you don't need me anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great.
Oh,
That's great. Yeah, we never really talked about it too much in terms of what your experience was, and how the team utilized it. Um, if you were to say, and not that people don't often measure this, but when you describe that funnel of all the things and you're at the bottom of the funnel just catching everything as it comes down, um, like on average per week, how much time would you say that the questions, the drive-by meetings, the knock on door, hey, do you got 5 minutes? Do you got a second? Hey, what do you think I should do with this? Like, what does that kind of add up to, would you say, in terms of minutes or hours, maybe?
yeah. I mean, I think it was a huge portion of every workday.
Hmm.
Where if I had to if I had to put a number on it, I mean, we're probably talking throughout the day. It felt like I was losing several hours a day
Hmm.
just addressing all of these small fires, which really didn't have to come back to me.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, tangibly saving some time. Um, if you could just walk through, so we'll take that. It's so simple. It fits on one sheet of paper, right? You print it out, PDF. We actually updated in the academy because a long time ago, Miguel shared a Spanish version and we forgot to update it.
Yep.
So that is there because, a lot of the crew might be, non-native English speaking. And so now we got both of those. So it fits on one piece of paper. It's visual and it's got 2 rules to it. So just walk me through for that one. Did you hold a meeting? Did you just kind of hand it to people? Did you post it up in the shop? And then the trucks. I'm just curious how you took
Yeah.
it and applied it because every member's done it in their own unique way.
Yeah. The first thing I did is I made a couple copies of it, color copies of it, and I laminated them
Nice.
and I hung them up, and including in my own office, a reminder to myself,
Nice.
this is what you put in front of them. You have to practice what you preach.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I shared it with the team. Like I said, I laminated them so it's right there in front of them,
Mm.
and they took to it right away.
Okay, perfect. Super simple. What would be the second thing that comes to mind that that really stood out for you that you applied and got a noticeable benefit from?
I would say the second thing would be really just making sure that I'm giving myself the freedom that the program is tailored to to give you that result in the end. And I
Mm,
think if you start practicing that on day one, instead of waiting for this magic thing to just happen, it's not
right.
like that. It's a building block. So every single day, you start to work this, what becomes a habit, right? And
Mm,
you're scheduling yourself out, whether it be blocking specific times to handle emails or return phone calls or whatever it may be, instead of just reacting to every little thing that came across your desk.
nice. Yeah, so gaining control of your time and applying the so we've people that have listened to we have some people that have told us they've listened to every single episode and things change. We often will tweak things in the program, so people might have heard something from before that isn't in there now, or we might have new things. But what Jay's talking about is really the principle of building your business for freedom first is what we call it. And in order to do that, you've got to own your time, and the idea of putting your life on your calendar first and then building your business priorities around that secondary. So like the life non-negotiables, um, and then the business, really time blocking those things that you need to focus on each day and not constantly context switching or having a totally blank calendar where you just end up in that reactive mode, putting out fires. Some people live in their email inbox for 3 hours, right? Just ping ponging things back and forth. With a client or several clients, I come up for air for lunch and then have to tackle a few more fires, and then the day ends and you feel like you didn't work on your business at all, right? Like what did
Absolutely.
I actually do that moved the needle? So that's kind of what we're jamming on there, and that's where people start. They start in the program with the decision matrix because, um, as Jay has mentioned, it really stacks up to be a lot more of your time, energy, and focus than you realize to solve things for other people or be asked all these questions that they could answer themselves, and then yeah, really starting to build that habit of owning your time, because if you don't, somebody else will or something else will. Um, okay, awesome. What would you say was the third thing? And there's some, if we'll get to the three things that you're mentioning, and then I've made a few notes of some things that you were really excited about that you shared on the group coaching calls, and we can talk about those. But what would be a third thing that really stood out for you?
The third thing that stood out for me in the program would probably have to be maybe the section where you start to track and really look at the data that's coming into your business. And I guess what I'm talking about is like when we started to talk about our own operating system, and really sometimes it's scary to look at data because data doesn't lie to you, right? And it gives you the truth. And it's a good way to track what you're doing and what your team is doing, especially as you're implementing some of these new policies and procedures with them. Um, with change, hopefully you're going to see a trending on the upward bound to that's relative to everything that else that you're going through, whether it's putting your life first or blocking out specific times to respond to people, or even with the decision matrix, getting your team to allow for you to buy back some of your time. I think all three of those together really make it a well-rounded program that you see results in multiple areas of.
Nice, awesome. Um, what would you say? And then after this, I'd love to jam on a few different topics. One being the benefit of being able to have a co-pilot alongside you in the program, so you didn't have to do everything. And so I know that you won't be able to speak in detail to what Jason, um, your co-pilot from your team, implemented when it came to your marketing machine. But you'll be able to talk about it, from a surface level, and then some of the other things you've been exposed to. I think there were certain things you were doing that I remember on one call you shared with us kind of what your wife said, right? About like in terms of how she uses certain things in the business and now you are. Um, And then I know you've really taken to utilizing and leveraging AI in your business. So I'd love to jam a little bit up about that. It's not something we do in the program, but I worked with Jay and he was able to put together his website super fast, um, or very quickly, and it looks great. And I know you're really excited about that. So I'd love to also talk about that as well. But with those three things, what could you say in terms of, like, you've talked about some of the benefits, but in terms of both business and personal, like how does that show up from where you were before to where you are now in terms of like the day to day in both business and life?
Sure. Um, well, I think right out of the gates, with me being able to buy back some of my time, is the first time in what seems like forever that I was actually able to work on the business and not for it. Because I mean, that was kind of the issue and the catalyst for wanting to get involved in the program in the very beginning, anyway. So,
Right.
um, and I find that with the time that I now bought back to put into the business, I find joy and excitement in that, as I know you're aware of, because you have to
Yeah.
deal with me. This, but um, so that's been huge, is to be able to really focus on the business. But
Mm,
above and beyond that, outside, when I go home for the day, what I find myself doing now is I have this whole new ability to talk with people in different industries
mm,
and kind of pick their brain and cherry pick, and talk about some of the things that I was doing. And like you had mentioned, my wife earlier, even in the corporate world, they have a much deeper pocketbooks, and sometimes they beat us to the punch on certain things. But to have this commonality, talking to people, and really, it just helps you think about what the next thing you can do for your business is.
nice. And then the practice will have to be to, as you said, like keep the blinders on, stay focused. I think, what did you say? Like just avoid this squirrel syndrome, right? Because it sounds like, because it's a really positive thing that happens to me too. Is like you're no longer just grinding in the day-to-day ops and fighting all those fires and answering all the questions and having to remind people of things that that they already know, and being that kind of bottleneck, right? And then everything funneling to, is it sounds like you're finding things that light you up to work on.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things can distract us because we are really excited and we want to jam on them. Um, but it's great to hear. It's great to hear that that's something that's coming in for you. Um, what are you doing now, like daily, weekly, routine wise, maybe, that you weren't able to do before?
Yeah. So I have a really strong commitment every morning, just for my own personal and mental health. So I'm working out at least 4 days a week. Um, and I'm not, so I work out really early in the morning, but it
Mhm.
still gets me in later than when I used to start,
Okay.
and I'm not as concerned about that anymore. We had a 6 a.m. start time, and so if I'm rolling in at 7 or 7:30 at this point in time, I know
Right.
things are handled
Yeah.
because of the policies and procedures we have in place from the day before, the week before, as we plan it out. So that's been huge because you know it gives you that mental clarity, and you're keeping
Yeah.
yourself healthy, and that's how you can keep moving forward.
Nice. Awesome. Um, yeah, I made some notes for some of the wins you shared over the weeks. When you're joining the group coaching program, we start off with sharing a win. So I made some notes from that. I'd love to dig into later. But let's jam a little bit on AI. I think you've said you weren't using it at all prior to, right?
Yeah, I never used it prior
Okay,
to.
never used it. Okay. And then in the 90-day growth engine program, you start off using ChatGPT because we've got some pre-built tools that make it a lot faster now than it did years ago for program members that had to think about everything, think it all the way through. We had these 15-page workbooks they would go through so that I could get them to think in a certain way to get the outcome, and that's the process now with AI. You kind of open up this chat GPT tool, have a conversation with it, and have it spit you out, the result. and does a lot of heavy lifting for you. So that's one way you started to use it. But then we introduced to you Claude Cowork. Um, and you had a workshop with our GM Wes. You and I talked about how you could use it because you were debating whether you should redo your website, and that would be a really big project and potentially investment. So I'd love to just hear, and I know you've done a ton of stuff I probably don't even know about, but maybe what are the what's been the journey? Because it's only been a couple of months
right?
of opening Pandora's box, you could say, with Cloud Cowork, and some of the amazing things that have happened since then.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like you mentioned, the website. So for me, that's an area that had been neglected literally for years.
Mhm.
And so I've always been a believer, even going back to my real estate broker days, that you know image means a lot, and to some extent, everybody tries to qualify you, at first glance. And so, um, with using and being introduced into Claude and Claude Cowork, and obviously you walking me through it, I essentially was able to completely rebuild our website to something that I felt matched our image and branding much better than the site that kind of sat stagnant for the last couple of years.
Nice.
That just kind of waterfalled into a whole bunch of other things, like um, I I would utilize AI to kind of update um, some of the care and maintenance programs that went out to our clients,
Mm,
and so I could really leverage pulling in our own branding, but pulling in that black and white, uh,
mm,
hard fact information that people were looking for,
nice.
how to take care of their countertops. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I've used it even in the sense that uh, as we work with our B2B campaign and we start to get some of these hits on it, it's a great way for me to really polish what I'm trying to say to them in a very short, paragraph or so, and
Right.
really hit those hot buttons with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's surprising how long it takes to write a really good. I would actually say so. Claude, ChatGPT, one of their gaps is copywriting. Um, like to have really authentic, genuine copy and messaging, it struggles with. And us marketers, I'm part marketer. Um, we've kind of ruined it. We've trained it, and now it can't unsee all these markety kind of ways of phrasing things and ways of writing things. But it still saves a ton of time than when you're staring at a blank screen, right? To help you draft something pretty solid, and then you can strip out the AI slop, and make it sound,
Yep.
like yourself. But it's amazing how long it'll take, is what I was trying to say, to write a really well crafted, well researched, and thought out email to a builder, for example. Like that might take an hour, to really sit down and write a really good one. So you've started to leverage it in that way for your really personalized touches. So that's great. Um, and then the website, was that a 2 week kind of from scratch, I think, for you to kind of first realize, wait, you had been debating it. One of the coaching calls, the theme of the coaching call was around decisions that were kind of we've been stuck on.
Yes.
I think that was the theme, and yours was like to build or not to build, a website. And had you started to explore? I think you had a friend that might have been the person that would have helped you with that if you were to go down that route.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Um, and that would have been maybe a bit of an investment, right? Yeah, financially and then time wise. So, how long did it take you when you implemented using Claude to build the website?
Well, I mean, I think, on the first draft that I put back in front of you guys, just to kind of make sure that I was headed in the right direction, because again, this is all new to me. Um, it was literally a matter of a couple of days to where I felt like I had everything basically put together, and then it just
Mhm.
needed to be tweaked, you know,
Right,
refined, and from a marketer's perspective, like
right,
what did I miss with this? But
right,
the gist of it happened really quickly, like really
right, right.
quick.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And neither of us had that technical know-how really, because I had yeah, that's right, you were debating that. Claude Cowork was fairly new at that point, and I was like, "Hey, so this is not something we do, it's not something I teach, but I built my wife a website." That's how that came up.
Exactly.
And now, I think both of us have learned a lot. I've built a lot more with it, and now I feel like I'm pretty savvy with it, as you would probably think that you are as well. But that's how that unfolded, right? I was like, so no promises, but I can record you a short training video to show you what my process was for what I did for my wife. And then, yeah, so a couple of days later, you had the base. And then it was a matter of getting it hosted, which was also really easy, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Just, yeah, this is an inspiring, hopefully, some people that haven't used AI yet, maybe feeling like Jay in terms of just a bit of that overwhelm, so many things they have to juggle. And I think if we could both just kind of endorse, at least starting to play with it, experiment with it, try just a couple of small experiments for how AI can impact your business. Um, and there'll really be no going back after, right?
No, no. When it's once it takes off, it's just yeah.
Yeah. Cause, and I mean, it's hard, right? I understand it has certain impacts of using it, but it really does, once you start to use it and leverage it, it feels like you're in the fast lane for your business. And then when you try to go back to some of the old ways, it's really like you're in the slow lane, right? Like yeah, truly. Um, okay, cool. So I'd love to also talk to you about, if we go directly within the program, the 90-day growth engine program has three phases. The first one's to stabilize. And so you identify what's the number one constraint holding your business back and solve that first before adding anything new. The second is to get into the systemized phase of getting your team in alignment, installing certain systems. Actually, I would like to talk to you about that. See how you've applied the playbook capture method, for example. And then the third one is the installing of a sales engine, which you're actually going to be doing soon. It's in your quarterly game plan. If you didn't review it yet, you'll go back and complete that. And then you typically would install your marketing machine. Because you usually put the sales engine in first so that you properly organize and manage opportunities and nurture them. And then you build and launch your marketing machine. But we chose to tackle it so that you would launch your marketing machine pretty quickly, and you had somebody from your team assigned as your co-pilot to take that on. Um, I guess I can fill the gaps for our audience in terms of just some of the steps of launching that Jason would have taken. You don't have to do that part, but I'm just looking over some of my notes here and kind of the timeline. Um, So you launched your B2B campaign, you said, got the first hit, and that led to a face to face meeting set for Friday. You had a second hit from a company with headquarters in North Dakota. And I think a few more than even you told me about last time, because you said we got three new leads from the B2B campaign. And that's where tracking them will come into play because there's sometimes more than we realize. And then I think more recently in the last 2 weeks, it was you converted your first real lead from the B2B campaign, small job, but they mentioned that there was more coming down the pipe. So that's me giving a little recap for the audience. But if you could share, as a business owner that didn't have to get in there and do the work, what was your experience of the process and some of the benefits that you could see from building a real structured system for business development?
Yeah. I mean, obviously having the co-pilot was huge. Um, and when he launched that, I'm kind of sitting back and not even really monitoring because in the beginning I didn't even fully understand what it was that he was launching. It was basically this is going out, and as you know, we were a little bit different. So we had what I always refer to as the silos, and we had three very targeted audiences, but very different from one another. And so we were strategic in how those were implemented and launched. Um, but to get a response that you can tell it's not just going to be an anybody, right? And so the real first hit when it was like, we want you to come in and meet face to face. We want to know more about what it is that you guys are doing because we think there might be a fit there.
Mhm.
And that one, that one kind of hit us out of left field because when we walked in for what we thought was going to basically be a two-on-one, you know, my co-pilot and myself
Mm.
with the business owner that responded, we actually walked into their conference room and he had his entire
Oh,
decision-making team sitting at a round table and he said, I thought there'd be no better time than right now when we're going through our weekly meeting to introduce you guys and to learn more about you.
dang, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we were, it was instantly right on stage, right? So it was go time. But it was,
Yeah.
good. I mean, that's what we thrive for.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, and almost better that way that like if I knew I had to meet with 8 people or something, I might get really, anxious or overthink
Right.
things. But
Yeah.
when you're
No
just right
anticipation.
in there and you're just like, oh, just kind of got to roll with it. Oh,
Yep.
that's awesome. What has transpired since then? Because we know that, and the audience will know that builders, contractors, multifamily developers, it's not a short sales cycle. Like this is relationship building, really, at the start. It can take a long time before they even send you something to bid on,
Right.
and even longer before that project's completed and you get paid on it. So, which is why sometimes I do like to jump on these calls and capture this early because it could take 6 months before that gets a return. But we can. It's nice to sort of see the arc, and then we could have you back and you can really talk about the projects that you guys ended up doing. Um, but yeah, if you could kind of just give a little bit of an update on how that's gone since that initial meeting with them.
Yeah. So it went silent for a small period of time, and
Mhm.
then we took another call from essentially the kind of the right hand man at that company, not the owner, but the person that he's kind of put out in the field to run the business for him. And they were in a little bit of a pinch and
Mm.
needed a job done. And so we were able to fit it into our schedule and take care of that. So I mean, obviously we won some brownie points by reacting. And I think that's the big takeaway was, you know, when somebody responds to you, you have to respond to them like instantaneously, right? You
Yeah.
got to jump on it, strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we did, you know, and we said, yes, what do you have? What do you need? When do you need it by?
Right.
We made it happen. And they're the party that has now said, okay, we have a lot more coming down the pipeline that all we needed was to crack the door just a little bit
Nice.
to get our foot in.
Right. Right.
We now feel that we're confident that we're going to foster a long-term working relationship with this company moving forward, you know. And
Nice.
for us, it's going to be great because it's it fits in the wheelhouse where the the work and the compensation isn't instantaneous, but it's also not on the other end of our spectrum, which is work now and get paid down the road. It's kind of
Yeah.
nice right in the middle, as a
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. Nice. All right. I'll ask you about one of the other ones in a moment. But just to share with people watching or listening to this, um, and we have other episodes and one I think recently where I go through the full entire system, the 5 steps that Jason, your co-pilot, would have taken to successfully launch to really build a B2B system that then you launch ongoing campaigns. But it really is a system that is there for activating meaningful and profitable relationships at scale. And that's something you guys are going to get back to doing, where it's something you never really want to take the foot off the gas, right? We always need to be, working the system and really trying to open conversations, because conversations lead to those relationships and it leads to conversions, which in our world is projects, right? And new customers. Um, but I'll take people through just the 30, maybe the 60,000 foot view, which is just, because I think or maybe I should ask you that, Jason. You think like before you came into the program, if somebody said, hey, you could build a system that's once you set it up, it's automated, it does need some care, and it's going to send out emails to builders, contractors, and it's going to help you open conversations that'll turn into project bids and then projects. You know, Would you have any idea what that meant, or if that he was even something that was going to work? Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah. I
would you
think,
have said?
I would have naturally, I would have been skeptical, right? Because
Mm,
it feels like we're getting barraged with, hey, we can do this for you, and we can handle this for you, and if you've
right.
never done it, which we never have, in 16 years of existence, we've never really launched a full blown marketing campaign to
Mhm.
anyone or anything. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I would have been extremely hesitant and extremely skeptical.
Yeah. 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 Which is actually one of the reasons that I think it's only come up once where we've had a program member say, I really don't know what my co-pilot's doing. Like, I feel like that should be explained to me. And, we jumped in, we said, yeah, no problem. Send you a little breakdown so you understand it. But we found it better to kind of like, what you don't know. And
Yeah,
just, and that's literally, or if your co-pilot's handling it, it's less for you to have to think about and less on your plate. But, when you kind of just release, let your copilot run with it, and you start to get some traction and some wins, then it actually buys the belief of like, hey, there's something here, and people can get excited about wanting to learn about it or doing more of it. But we kind of do that intentionally, actually, so that you're not kind of like, oh, that'll never work, and like, oh, we sent emails once to designers or builders, and we never got anything back. There's a lot of skepticism, and I think in the surface industry now more than ever, because it's so easy to launch a marketing company, and we're not one anymore. But we used to do consulting and growth marketing at the same time. Is I get targeted with a lot of the ads that stone tile and flooring companies probably do too, and it's just like, we can get you your schedule for projects booked like fully every month, or you don't pay anything, right? Or we'll get you 100 leads, or you don't pay. Which we're not really, as marketing companies, aren't doing ourselves any favors with these bold, outlandish claims, that people just tune it out. So, um, yeah, I think you got that first one that led to that meeting on the initial campaign that Jason launched, right? To install your B2B system, you want to look at, you've got three silos as you describe them. So for others, that's, we got three target customers we want more of. And what are your three? If you just share them with people.
yeah. So we went after general contractors, cabinet shops,
Cabinet shops.
and small builder renovators.
Okay, cool. So other people might have designers, architects, millwork companies, uh, remodelers, kitchen and bath dealers, and all the way down the line, we've had companies that go, "Hey, we, as a stone company, we do tops. Anybody that needs tops, we'll talk to." So all the way through to, disaster restoration companies that then, like, something's happened at a multi-unit. There's a building that somebody owns and operates and calls in that restoration company, and they need 400 new tops, right? But nobody thinks to get in front of those guys, right? As like the go-to company for surfaces. So that, to senior care living facilities when they do updates into hospitality and restaurants, bars, med spas, hotel lobbies. And then if you're not a stone company, but you're a flooring company, it might be gymnasiums, right? That are doing like seasonally updating their floors, uh, dance studios and gyms. And we often don't think about, well, there's a lot more people that need what we have, and we need to find a way to get in front of them. So that's the first thing. It's looking at your total address, where are your customers? Like, who are your customers? Where can we find their information? And we show you guys how to do that. You want to build your total addressable market, so you've got a good database to reach out to. And then you guys are leveraging proven campaigns that when we used to do this for stone, tile, and flooring companies, that we've used for, nearly like 7 to 8 years at this point. And so you guys don't have to figure out what that messaging is or like write those things from scratch. It's kind of plug and play, Jason was able to do with some, customization. And then you launch it and let that thing run. Right. And so it's not something that Jason's having to like spend hours doing after he gets it set up. Yeah.
No, not at all. And I mean, exactly like what you said. The customer that I was telling you about that we forged this new relationship with, they are in that, for the lack of a better term, they're in that disaster relief industry,
Oh,
and
okay.
wasn't even really necessarily what we would have targeted.
Oh,
Um,
great.
and so it did. It fit inside the bucket of what we put as the parameters of the target audience for that particular B2B campaign. But they kind of slipped in, and that
Yeah.
ended up being one, that opened our eyes, and we're like, yeah, these guys are dealing with fire and flood and all of this stuff where these areas have to be remodeled and renovated, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it's going to turn into a nice client for us.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, sometimes because if you're getting 500 prospects, to be reaching out to, some people will check every single one, but like we err on the 80/20 rule. Like, yeah, do like do your quality of control and go through and make sure they're generally a fit. But it's not the worst thing when certain ones kind of slip through that weren't the exact match, but hey, they qualify.
Yep.
They do work with companies like yours and a pleasant surprise. What was the other company that kind of came up that had like a headquarters, but they also do projects in other states? Was it?
Yeah, yeah. So excuse me, their headquarters are actually in one of the Dakotas adjacent to us here in Minnesota, but they have a satellite office here in the metro, just because of the size and the amount of work that goes on around here. So it was great because at first we were trying to figure out why are we getting a response from somebody from South Dakota, when
Right.
we're in Minnesota. But we quickly put it together that they had a point person here in the metro that they wanted us to reach out and talk to directly to that person.
Nice. And has that conversation continued a little bit since that
Yeah,
initial?
I mean, again, we're kind of in the nurturing, fostering stage of
Right.
it, but we've made contact. They're aware of who we are. We feel that we're going to start to show up on their RFPs, which we
Nice.
never would have if we wouldn't have made them part of the B2B campaign.
Awesome. And I know as we head into Q3, we've just created your game plan for Q3 because you've moved out of the 90-day growth engine program and the foundations group into what we now call the council, where you and I are working directly together. In the council, we'll focus on more advanced systems for the business to really deepen that structure, but also to get ready to, drive significant growth. Like that's where the scaling comes in, while at the same time not being the bottleneck. Because if you scale first and you're still the bottleneck, it's usually just a world of pain. And also dropping the ball on clients because, right, we can't put our energy and attention where it needs to be. So, what Jay's going to be doing alongside Jason, his co pilot, is building a bigger group of prospects to reach out to. I think there's a lot more out there for you guys than the initial list. So, we want to get that total addressable market. So, we have the numbers are in our favor because it is a bit of a numbers game, right? When you reach out, only a certain amount are going to respond. Um, but Jay's also going to do a more personalized approach, kind of treat it like he's got his dream 100 of his ideal customers that we're actually not going to automate and put into that system as easy as it is. And sometimes it's nice to be hands free. He's going to leverage Claude and really take the care to do the research to figure out how they can be of value, to these specific clients and the types of work that they do and kind of handcraft and send things, out to them. So that's where Jay's really going to take things to build on this because we want to have a consistent pipeline, of conversations that are opening, turning into potential bids and projects. So that's where we're headed in Q3, and so we can really hit our goals in Q4. Just to kind of let people know where we're at with that. And then if we kind of shift gears here, I know. Thank you for your time, Jay. I want to be mindful. We've kind of gone over just a little bit. I think is so if you were to share with a stone, so we work with stone tile and flooring companies, although stone is the, where I started in this industry and have the most experience with. If a stone tile or flooring business owner asked you why they should join the program, somebody that was where you were 6 months ago, what would you tell them?
I'd tell them I would tell them to run to it, not to walk to it and think about it. I mean, it's literally it can revolutionize what you're doing today, with way less effort than what you think it's going to take to do it. And
Mm.
you're going to kick yourself. It's one of those things where if you wait 6 months, you're going to look in and then you jump in, you're going to go, why didn't I do that 6 months ago? And that's where I was at. Not that I had been thinking about it 6 months earlier, but it was one of those deals where it's like, where have you been all my life? Like,
Right.
let's
Awesome.
get this thing
Awesome.
going.
And we love having you in the program. We think that, it's I think you inspire others with the way you execute, the way you take action, the way you tackle challenges. So we love having you in the program, man. I've
Will you
not actually
tell
asked.
my wife that for me, please?
Yeah, I will. I can share an endorsement of you for her. um, but I haven't asked this question before, but hearing you say that, I would love to have you share. So there is an investment in our program. The way that we like to look at it is when you join the program, marketing or business development on the B2B side is not a silver bullet. It's not. I mean, we've had some members that have had those, like they threaded the needle, somebody need them now. And it was also a project that paid right away. That's not always the case for builders and contractors. So you're very likely to get your return on your investment from the marketing machine after the initial 90 days, most likely. When another member is launching their marketing machine for retail, that's where they can get, it'll be quick. They'll get, leads in the first week, consistent leads, and homeowner projects turn quickly, and they can recoup their investment pretty quickly. For stone shops, they've talked about, in the past, we've had people say, I just got to sell like a slab and the program kind of pays for itself, right? Or they'll sort of say things like that. I'd love to hear from you because you didn't do the retail marketing machine, right? You're focused on the B2B side. It's often hard for me to even articulate, what's the real tangible value for somebody when it's, hey, I bought back my time. I don't have to be the funnel for all the decisions or the bottleneck for all the problems. Um, what would you say is your feeling on the benefit for the investment that you make into the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to put a dollar value to it. Where I'm looking at it as, is it an investment? Yes, it's real money. That you're putting into something that you have to go in with the mindset of you have to work it. You can't just throw money at somebody and expect that, oh, thank you, I'm going to
Yeah.
pull all these piles of money back towards me.
Right.
As long as you have buy-in to the program and then you physically buy into the program, I'm looking at it as though, you know, the one particular client that I was talking about, that we have serious traction with, that one single client alone could pay for this program over and over and over. And yes, it's not an immediate response as far as cash flow goes, but I understand that we're nurturing a relationship. And
Mhm.
the way I look at it is it kind of weasels its way from one particular company into the next. And you start to build on this name recognition. And, people hear about you, they're inquisitive and they want to reach out. The next thing you know, you're filling out requests for proposals for companies that you never had done that for before.
Mhm.
And again, it takes, when you're in the commercial and the multifamily realm, those paydays can be huge. And I think we have a member, that is experiencing that right now. And
Right.
that's really all it takes.
Right, right. Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that because I'm really excited as you guys look to put the foot on the gas again with that system, really unlock what it has to offer for you guys to, really give you that confidence, right? That your pipeline's going to be very consistent because it does help in so many other areas of the business, right? From being able to do strategic planning, investing in areas of the business, hiring, all of those types of things. And so I'm really excited to do that with you. And also that you're going to take an active approach in the Dream 100 because that's, it's while we do get fantastic results from the automation, like when you have your top cream of the crop, or you call them whales, right? The
Yep.
potential whale clients are going to get the white glove from you. It's going to only have a even more outsized return on your investment of the time that you put in. So I'm super excited, and hopefully we can record, an episode maybe in the new year and see what's happened, because you are going to execute. I know that Jason will execute, and I think our audience will be curious to hear where that's put you. Because would you agree, and I'd love to hear your experience. So you said 16 years you've never done a marketing campaign. Would you agree, you guys are multifamily commercial, but also just builders, contractors, designers in general. When you're so busy working on the business and then maybe potentially unsure of like what will move the needle with those guys, like is that one of the harder areas to kind of figure out, would you say?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you want to you're human, so you want to see some tangible, reaction right away. Um, but that's not always necessarily the case. Like you do have to do a little behind the scenes uh, work, put some elbow grease into it, and then I think once it goes out, um, it kind of starts to work itself.
Hmm. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So you're saying, yes, it does take some work to set up, but and then it's kind of like a flywheel and it compounds. But let me say it differently. The question, prior to coming into the program, then, and just in your experience for 16 years, and not putting out any sort of marketing or business development, would you say that for the stone tile flooring industry, if you could speak for surface industries in general, is like moving beyond referrals, word of mouth, or the accounts that you've grown over the years, right? That take, you know, somebody tells them about you, right? A builder hears about you, you get introduced, and you start working for them. Getting outside of that, do you think that that is one of the harder things when you don't have a path or a system to follow to kind of figure out on your own?
Oh, for sure, and I think that's what that's what prohibits us from doing it.
Hmm.
You kind of tell yourself, "Hey, you have a lack of confidence. Where do I start? How do I even get in front of these people?" And I think by we'll use the B2B campaign. You know, it's breaking the ice for you.
Mm.
And all you have to do is drive around and you look at, like for us, and I'll focus on multifamily. You drive around the Twin Cities and you go, there's a building, there's a building, there's a building. Who's building it, and why didn't we even know about it?
Right.
And the only way
Right.
to put an end to that is to put something like this together and get it out in front of them. You
Love
know,
it.
yep.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate that, Jay. So yeah, just to land the plane there in the beginning, when you're focused on something like multifamily or commercial with a long sales cycle, the tangible return on investment of the program isn't immediate, but you could see the signs pretty early that, hey, this is gonna pay off for itself 10 times over potentially. But then also on the life, balance part that you were talking about, I think that we, often as business owners don't put enough weight on just how important it is to not be in that position where we work for our business instead of the other way around, and we don't have as much time to enjoy doing the things we want to be doing. And so I think you've said, yeah, that that's also just been like, while we can't put a number on it, it's also extremely valuable, and a lot more people should deserve that. I mean, everybody deserves it, but like, should, you said run to it, like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
awesome.
do experience
Um, what's that?
I said you need to experience it.
Yeah.
We work that hard. There's got to be that reward, and sometimes that reward is personal. It's not monetary.
Mhm.
It's what you're able to do to enjoy, and look back and say that's why I work so hard. That's why I chose to be a business owner, is
Right.
because I want to enjoy these times that aren't even related to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Jay, are you ready? We will jump into our first ever edition of the rapid fire segment of the podcast. All right.
Okay, let's do it.
Ready to go. Okay. Off the top of your head, best piece of advice you ever got about running a trade business?
Best piece of advice I've ever received about running a trade business uh, would probably be, man, here comes a rapid fire, right?
Yeah.
Uh, expect the unexpected.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You just put that
I
on a
mean,
t-shirt.
right? You have to prepare. You have to prepare for the absolute unexpected. And to give you an example of that is yesterday. You know, we had a box truck because it's abnormally hot here right now in Minnesota, and so we had a box truck that blew a coolant hose out on the interstate,
Mhm.
right? And so nobody's expecting that, but there's already a procedure put in place. What do we do if this happens, right? Instead of freaking out and everybody reacting, like, what are we going to do about it? What's the plan? So,
You
you
already had a contingency plan in place?
yes,
Wh
because we want to make sure that we're looking at everything, right? And I
Wow.
mean, luckily for us, it happened here locally yesterday before we had a crew leave town today for an out of town job.
Mm,
Because that could have been, that would have really put us to the test of
right.
trying to expect the unexpected.
Nice. That's awesome. That goes right on theme to what's one thing that's been unexpected, like one thing that blah, 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 blah. What's one unexpected thing that you've learned that's made the biggest impact on your business?
Sure. I think every business owner wants to scale up and be bigger. And you think bigger, more this, more that, more money, more jobs. Sometimes I wasn't ever expecting that we would downsize, and that's what we did about a year and a half ago. And I had so many takeaways from taking a step back, restructuring, and then fast forward all the way to today, with the implementation of the program. I just feel like we're such a better, more well equipped company that's ready to scale now, so much more than the reactive scaling that we did in years past.
Mm, yeah, I would say that that is one thing that people get fixated on a number or crew count. One, without having the foundation in place to be ready to scale. Two, also, where did those goals come from? Like, what's the why behind that? Why do you want that?
Right,
Because often it's not worth it once you get there
right.
and all the things you have to sacrifice for that. So if it is something you really do want, it's rooted to a why that really does continue to pull you forward every day and you're excited to do it. And you do put the right foundation in place so it's not just chaos and pain, then yeah, go for it. But I've just seen so many times that people have a number when we talk to them, either whether we work with them or not, and then we ask them, well, why 10 million? And it's like, I have no idea. Just like I've got a couple of buddies and I think we actually do better work than them and they're at 10. So we should be at 10. It's like, okay, well, maybe just sit with that for a minute before we start working towards that, right? And really question it. What's one thing you'd want every stone tile or flooring business owner to know, and something that often you think that is a lesson they end up learning too late, or something that they end up having to figure out too late?
Um, I guess it would be to to understand to understand your own data, to understand why are you priced at where you're priced at,
Mm.
and what does that mean for your bottom line, and are you taking care of everything that's following behind it? So I think having a good uh, financial sense of where you're at, and again, it kind of plays off of what we just talked about, where don't be fixated on I'm going to be a $5 million company, I'm going to be a $10 million company. Bigger numbers just mean bigger bills and bigger whatever, right?
Yeah,
Until
right.
you can refine what you're starting with.
Hmm. Totally. All right. Switching gears here. Do you have a favorite book, like all time favorite, that stands out? Could be a business book, could be a self development book, could be a fiction book. No rules there. That's impacted your life. And if you can't think of one, just something that you're reading right now that you would recommend to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch super quick on both of them. One of the simplest books I've ever read is called Raving Fans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It literally reads almost as though you're in elementary school, but the message behind it is so incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
It's something that carries forward no matter where you're at, uh, how big or small your company is. I think it's just getting back to the fundamentals of creating raving fans.
Hmm.
But with that being said, I mean, I will say that the book that I just finished, which is The Dream Manager, um, that was a great book as well, simply because sometimes the most obvious things are right in front of your face, but you're too
Mm,
close to see them.
mm,
And so that really opened my eyes to take a step back and, every business is as strong as the people that are part of that business.
mhm. Did you audio that or did you read the physical copy?
You can call me out on that for real.
No, no, yeah,
Yeah, no, I audioed
yeah.
that.
No,
So
me
yep,
too, because that was really fast. That's why I asked, because I
yep.
like I love audiobooks because then I can take them wherever I go and on a dog walk, driving at the gym you're at the gym at 5 a.m., right? So, that's where you can get it in there. Can you remind me, because it was Wes, our GM at Driven for Growth, that recommended that book on a coaching call. What was the conversation happening that he recommended that book live? Because I can't remember.
Yeah, we were talking about the kind of the monthly goals, and within that I had made a comment that you want to be the guy that people want to work for.
Ah, that's right.
And so the moment that I wrote that, he's just like, hey, I've got a book for you, and boom, he pinged it over, and you know,
Yeah.
I I ended up getting it that day. Um,
Oh, nice.
and he was dead on, right? Exactly what I was looking for. What that book fulfilled that need.
Nice. Okay, yes. So that's context for the audience. Yeah, we were working on monthly, we call it monthly momentum, setting our 4 week vision, game plan, and goals, and who we want to become in those 4 weeks as like our identity. Wes is extremely well read. I mean, he will like almost daily we'll talk about something. He goes, the book that you should read for that. And I'm like, I can't. I don't. I stopped writing them down because I can't keep up. He's really incredible. He actually has this morning practice where he's used Claude to feed him, snippets from the great minds, the best books. And then it forces him to memorize it. The next day, he's got to input the thing from the previous day until he has them all memorized. And I was like, that's not the way I would want to start my day. But all the power to you, man. But yeah, he's great for that. Last question for you, Jay, and then we'll hop off. Is what's one tool or app right now that you feel you couldn't run the business without?
I mean, where I'm at right now, I would say Claude.
Yeah. That well, okay, then what would you say before using Claude? What was a tool that's like very industry, common in the industry that you would have
Yeah,
previously said, hey, I can't live without this because it does the takeoffs and estimates for me or something like that?
yeah. A little less down the line of takeoffs and estimates, but I use a program called Basecamp.
Okay. Oh,
And
cool. Cool.
yeah, and Basecamp, we've implemented Basecamp for years and years.
Nice.
And I think it's just a great way for it's a clearinghouse where anybody on the team that's assigned to the project, they can get all of the critical information, the scheduling. You can have chats that are logged specifically
Yeah.
just for that project. It's been huge.
Nice. All right, cool. So a great like project management scheduling tool or leveraging Basecamp to be that. And then in the new era now, yeah, just talk about why Claude is now so indispensable for you and
Yeah,
how you
I
see
mean,
the potential of it for you even.
right. I feel like Claude's my buddy. Like he knows so much about me and about the company now,
Yeah, yeah.
that um, he almost knows what I'm thinking. But no, so I think I find myself using it multiple times a day. Whether it's how do I want to respond to the prospect that I just got off the phone with and had a very meaningful conversation with, and I feel like there's some traction there. How do I really drive it home, or how do I tip the scale on a prospect to make it more personal so I don't look like I'm one of 50 inquiring about a particular job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I'll just say this. I mean, there is so much. I don't mean noise to sound negative, but there's so much noise around AI right now in I think all industries. But if you look at the stone tile and flooring industry, probably in your feed, Jay, right? Something popping up of a tool that can do like all of these things for you, right? It'll program your CNC for you. It'll like do the takeoffs and estimates. It'll do this, 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 and this. You get inundated with all of these big promises of what it can do. I think we're very early on, and I do see a lot of different things where it's like, okay, we're going to launch our beta, or who's interested in this, and it's coming in 10 weeks, which means like nobody really knows if it's really going to work, right? And I think what we've embraced and planted our flag for our clients, and what you'll see more of, Jay, and is leveraging a really stable environment and platform. So Claude, very stable, being used by massive corporations in really meaningful ways. Is that once you learn to leverage Claude, you can build your own ecosystem in a way. Once you
Correct.
learn the basics and then beyond the basics, but of how to start to connect things, how to get platform data, because it's only ever as good as what you put in. So clean data in, clean data out. But where we're going to move, and so you participated in the first workshop to build your executive assistant, right, or your chief of staff, is the next workshop is a sales sidekick for sales teams. And we're going to continue to roll out more of these things, including, hey, how to identify where we're leaking margin and profitability. That'll probably be the third one. Because no two shops, well, that's not true, but if you took five shops, their tech stack is not the same, right? Everybody's using something different, right? Some people use QuickBooks, some people don't use Basecamp. First time I've heard of somebody using Basecamp for that. Somebody else will be using Moreware, Stone Profits, Floors app. Like it's endless. So I think the direction we need to go is, yes, leverage the tools where people have validated that, hey, this is an all-in-one and it can do everything for you. If the right thing comes along and you can explore that and it does validate, great. If not, really embrace it as an owner to see, what is this we're talking about? How can you leverage that? And then I think take the time, that's the next big investment, to build what you need for your own unique business. Right. And so that's when people are joining Driven for Growth, we're going to have an ongoing series monthly of workshops to really one at a time kind of put if it's a hub and spoke kind of model, where you've got the hub, which we're using as Cowork, Claude Cowork, and then all the different spokes so that we create as much leverage in our business as possible. So I'm really excited about that. Um, Jay, thank you so much for your time. And we'll see you on tomorrow's coaching call with the rest of the group.
My pleasure. Sounds good. We'll see you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you, man.